There's a lot of things you can do to get people to like you, but it's also important to know what not to do. Even if you do a lot of things right, making some of these mistakes will mess up the interaction and change someone's opinion of you. Here are 5 things you should stop doing if you want people to like you. 1. Don't flake on people. When you flake on someone, it means you have plans with them, but then you don't show up or you cancel at the last second. It annoys me whenever a plan falls apart because someone flaked, unless there's a legit reason why that person couldn't show up, and I'm sure many of you feel the same way. If something serious did happen, you should let the other party know and make sure you don't build a reputation as someone who always flakes and never shows up. When you have that reputation of being a flake, it tells the other party that you aren't interested in spending time with them. Once you develop a reputation as someone who never shows up, people will make less plans with you and maybe even stop contacting you. Make sure you show up to things you say you will show up to. 2. Don't take criticism poorly. You need to be humble and accept criticism. I watched a good amount of NBA basketball for the 2021 to 2022 season, and I saw firsthand how not taking criticism well made someone unlikable. The case study I want to point to is Russell Westbrook, who played for the LA Lakers. There was this game in January where the Lakers beat the Minnesota Timberwolves despite a horrible first half of the game from Westbrook. During the post-game conference, when asked about his struggles in the early game, he shook off the criticism by saying he was allowed to miss shots and turn the ball over. Everyone knows it's nearly impossible to shoot 100% from the field and have 0 turnovers, but a lot of people were hoping Westbrook would own up to his mistakes and acknowledge how he will be better. This response didn't sit well with a lot of people, and people on social media started forming negative opinions on him, and the media blasted him the day after. When you don't take criticism well, it makes you appear as someone who has a huge ego and no self-awareness, which isn't a trait people like. I know criticism can hurt, but just be humble when you are on the receiving end. 3. Don't just focus on talking about yourself. When you only talk about yourself, it gives the other party the impression that you're not interested in them. People want to feel like they're being heard in a conversation, and when you always steer a conversation back to yourself, it makes them feel like you're only interested in talking about yourself. You want to do things like ask questions to show that you have been listening. We all want to share things about ourselves, and it's fine to talk about yourself, but you should do things to make the other party know that you have been listening to them. 4. Don't talk about other people in a negative light. This one has some exceptions though, which I'll talk about later. You don't want to talk about mutual friends or acquaintances in a negative light. It gives the other party the impression that you are a backstabber, someone that roots against people, and judgmental. None of these are traits you want associated with yourself. It really brings down the mood of the conversation. People generally want to feel better after a conversation, and talking about someone in a negative light usually does the opposite. An exception to this I can think of is sports talk. It's generally accepted to talk about players in a negative light, and it's even possible to bring the mood of the conversation up. For example, say you're talking to another fan of the same sports team you're rooting for, and you're talking about how a certain player has been awful and needs their minutes reduced for the team to win. If the other person agrees with your take, they will like you more and think you are a smart person. 5. Don't change your energy levels based on what you can get from someone. I remember this interaction where me and my group of friends were hanging out, and someone in the group wasn't too interested in our conversation. They weren't contributing much, and they were either staring off into space or checking their phone. Someone else they knew showed up in the vicinity, and all of a sudden that person left our group to talk to them. Their energy level was way higher, and they were way more engaged in that conversation. It definitely made me and the rest of the friend group feel a little grossed out. There's obviously people you want to talk to for longer periods, and it makes sense to bring more energy to certain interactions. But going from low energy to high energy suddenly isn't a good look. It makes you appear as someone that isn't genuine. Something better you can do is to have a moderate baseline level of energy and enthusiasm, so the jump doesn't seem out of place or try hard. There's more mistakes you can make that make people dislike you, but there's no need to go through all of them, or else we might be here all day. Basically, just don't act self-absorbed, don't be negative, and make sure you make the other person feel heard in a conversation. People want to feel good after a conversation. They don't want their mood to be worse after talking to you. As long as you understand this, you can get people to like you more. Do you make any of these mistakes? Leave a comment below and check out the video shown on the end screen for things you can do to make people like you more if you want to learn more about how to be likable.